Okay, hello. This is the Boys and Chess Club June quads tournament. Um, the quads is essentially where all the participants in the tournament are grouped into groups of 4 by rating, and then you single round robin everyone in the group. And so this is the June edition of that game, of that tournament. And so this is the analysis and recap of those games. Um, the first game is I had the white pieces against Gelinas-Sundaram. I've watched Kevin play before. I last saw him at a rapid tournament um, where he played my friend Andrew, who I've beaten twice. And we've chatted a lot after the games. And they drew that game. But I thought that they both had either winning or drawing chances in that game, but they ended up drawing. And so I kind of seen a little bit of his play style. Um, and so yeah, and so this is the game. We have a King's Indian defense, and recently I have been learning the Samish um, with F3. It This is the first time I'm actually playing it in a classical game. I've mostly been playing it online, but this is the first time I've seen the King's Indian defense since starting to review lines from the Zamish, and so I was thinking that now is the time to deploy it in a classical setting. Um, he actually told me after the game that he does not play the King's Indian defense, and this is just like a spur of the moment thing for him, which I was kind of surprised about. But I guess he mentioned not having a lot of good responses for D4, and so I told him that he should actually learn the King's Indian, but that kind of just doing it without knowing is going to be a little tough, especially against this quite critical line with F3 castles, bishop E3. This is all mainland stuff. Knight B7 is not. If you look at the Masters database, actually, Knight B7 is the 5th most popular move. I've seen a lot of play go with C5 or E5 immediately. Although Knight B7 has pretty clear intentions of doing that on the next move. And you can't really do much about it as with the white pieces. So I went Queen D2. Has multiple meanings. But also the main goal in the Samish is to get a queenside castle and launch a large kingside attack with all your pieces pointed at the kingside already, and the f3 pawn blunting the knight's development to squares like g4. Yeah, so after queen d2, he goes e5, and I was very certain that you cannot take here because of how weak these squares will become. And obviously pushing is the same thing, but at least when you push, the position stays closed and allows this attack to develop regardless of the positioning in the center. So I went to d5, and then he actually just blunders here with c6. I'm not sure if he just didn't realize that the d pawn is hanging after the variation, or if he just thought that like the pawn break. Um, I I'm not entirely sure what the plan here was. It might just be just a didn't think all the way through, which is okay. So takes. We have this position, and in this position, I was actually looking at a couple lines here. I really wanted c5 to be playable now, but c5 doesn't work because of queen a5, where the then gets hit twice, and you can't really defend it twice unless you go out and then in. And I didn't like this. I didn't like. Yeah, so c5 doesn't really work because of this, and it's very difficult to defend. Although I guess you do have time for now, so it's quite possible that not this doesn't work. You just hang the knight. But it's quite possible that this is actually fine to go c5 immediately. Because funny enough, the queen is trapped here. You can't. So rook f8 also does not work. Surprising enough. So maybe I'm not even sure. Like some sort of bishop a6 variation. But even after bishop a6, is, the b4 just hangs the piece. So yeah, maybe actually, maybe it's just playable. c5 might be playable. Now that I'm realizing it, but I don't really see a way for white to dislodge the queen before getting b4 on the board. Like this is almost guaranteed to happen. The knight can't really move anywhere without this knight will hang, and this knight can't move anywhere really. So yeah, this might be playable, which is actually quite surprising. Something like this is possible. And this is losing for black already because this bishop is essentially out of the game. A5 is absolutely required. Although I guess with a5, it could be difficult for black to, or for white to hold the position stable. Although it is white to move. So there might be some ideas. Like, I wonder if long castles works here actually. Maybe long castles, but then everything is glued together. Like this, the pieces can't really move, or else everything hangs. And if you just go like, and you can't go back to cut off the rook either. So this is like miserable for black. You have to go like here, and then I feel like you're fine just trading everything because the pieces have no activity. Like you just go here, and black can't move any pieces. So maybe c5 could have worked immediately. But I went to h3. This also might have been lines where this works, but this feels a lot more dangerous than the immediate c5 line. So I looked at both of these, and I wasn't really a fan. Oh, now that I look at the c5 line, I think I am a fan. I think I might have overestimated the impact of queen a5 here. This just looks like it's just winning. Yeah, but maybe with the queen b4 to get on the side of the pawn. There might be something, but also it's a little dangerous, and the king ends up kind of on the side. Although it may be fine. This may be fine because the pawn hangs. So you have to go like a5, and then you probably play around this outpost square with something like knight a5. Let's just say like here and here, and you play around these queenside weaknesses. Get the knight in the game. Might be possible. But I went at h3 instead, with the simple idea of when c5 does happen, the f7 square is certainly a prime target, especially with something like g4 h4 coming in to blow open the king side. He goes rook e8, which makes sense because this pawn needs to be defended. Also, the bishop can come back to get the queen out of the position, which it does. And then he goes queen a5. And I did not think queen a5 did anything. I actually thought it might be better for something like bishop c5. Because these dark squares, they're certainly the biggest weakness in the position, with this kind of like Maroczy bind structure where all the pawns are light squares. And so almost forcibly getting rid of the dark square bishop, because if I don't, I mean these dark squares are very weak. I can't really castle. I definitely don't want to castle long anymore, even though we're in this opening where you typically would castle long. Because the b file is open as a result of him losing the pawn here. And so this was certainly not a risk I wanted to take. But if I had to, I mean, I think this line is okay. With something like b4 and then b4 and a3. This is probably also very good for. Might also be very good for maybe even trade the queens as well. Or trade the queens in this line, where black gets to trade the queens. But either way, this position looks very good for white. Because of the same ideas, these pawns are weak. You can take control of the open file eventually, and play this for a win quite easily. So yeah, so queen a5 I wasn't really very scared of. So I just castled bishop a6, and now a3, and I'm preparing my c5 idea that I could have played 5 moves ago. And so yeah, now b4 would come with tempo, and then c5 would also force this exchange in which I would get my knight here, and then my idea was to go so like if he doesn't move the queen, if he goes like here instead, on the open file, I would have something like b4, e back here, takes, and then knight takes e2. And once again, his pieces are extremely restricted here, with these squares for the knight being almost completely inaccessible. A5 is essentially required here, in which I probably have something like g4 and knight g3, something like this, and this. And then I would shuffle the knights around a bit and launch my pawns forward and play this for a win. But he actually goes queen 7 first, so b4 does not come with tempo. I still play b4, but c5 is still my idea. And he goes rook e d8, which I'm surprised about, because rook a d8, this pawn is still defended by the queen. So I'm surprised about rook e d8. I think rook a d8 is just much more active, keeping both center files controlled by the rooks. So I was quite surprised about rook e8. I probably would also have just played queen c2 like I did in the game, and then the game would have gone on. But rook e8, I queen c2, bishop e7, and now c5 is just screaming to be played right now. Because after c5, the light bishop is locked out of the game, staring into 4 pawns. The dark square bishop is also very unable to get active. Because if you're sitting on the Fian shadow square, you have this e pawn sitting in the way that is supported by a pretty strong pawn chain with no easy breaks. Playing the f pawn forward here is extremely weakening for the position because this light square diagonal, and the dark square is being able to open up soon after that. And so once again, the pieces are just very very restricted here. So he goes a5 immediately, looking at a5, probably bishop a6 again, looking at this trade now that this light square bishop was essentially useless. The trade is probably very nice. But I just went bishop c4, looking at the f7 square, and he does not defend the f7 square here. I thought, I told him after the game that I thought that the maybe a much more solid line would have been something like bishop e7, because after 95, you can go back here, defending this position, and then you could kick the knight out, etc. Or even bishop g7. Bishop g7 would probably do the same thing as well, where you just kind of like hunker down. Because I mean, I have to come attack to win the game. It's not gonna win itself. So I thought after this, black was okay. I mean, still down the pawn. But he went rook a7 instead, and so knight g5 comes, and it is unstoppable. He actually told me that I think he just missed the tactic that I will show in a second. But bishop a6 looks like a pretty cheeky pin on the rook, but you can take the check. And what he missed was that he told me that he wanted to go king g7, and so when the knight is kicked out, and the rook is hanging, and then when the knight gets kicked out with something like h6, the bishop hangs as well. What he did not see is that king g7 actually hangs the queen. Actually, you'd probably go here. But that might run into some issues down the line as well, considering that the king is sitting on e7. But after like this transformation, I just have the queen and 2 pawns for a rook and knight, which is almost certainly a winning advantage. I could even maybe take this pawn, but I don't know if rook b8 would be of any concern. Although I think rook b8 and then queen c4, and you just kind of maneuver the pieces around your pawns and look for a win. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, losing the queen. I mean, even this isn't even that bad. Like you still have. Although okay, this is not the line. You still have like a little bit of competition. It's just I have so many pawns. It's not safe. And so he has to here. And even now, I thought 96 might be fine, because of this knight being in the way, and I just pick up immediately. You can't take the rook yet, so I thought like after something like queen c8, takes. You might have to take this on the way out. Just like, as a desperado. Because then takes, and you just have 3 pawns. And if you desperado as well, then the rook hangs. And you can't desperado like this either. Well, you can also desperado like this. But or actually you can't, because the queen would also hang. So you have to take here and then here. And then this position, I have 3 pawns. You can try to break open the position here and look for counterplay, but it's few and far between, especially as I can just very easily plant a knight in the center. And there's no stopping this position. I have 2 connected pass pawns here, supported by the queen, and the rook can come as well, and the bishop after. Actually, I mean, this is probably even stronger, because just discovered attack. Although this kind of clogs everything up a bit. And this, I mean, it's essentially just losing for black on the spot. So yeah, the 96 might have been a much better try at a win. I think I missed his desperado, actually. I think if I had seen the knight c6 line, certainly a win, a much cleaner win at least. But what ends up happening in game is that he's able to get both rooks to the corner, preparing to open the a file. And instead of defending anything, or taking and relieving the pressure a little bit and just kind of letting these pawns fall, I would knight a4. And the idea that I had calculated in knight a4 is that this square is essentially undefendable, and there's too many holes in the position for black to cover all of. Like planting this knight here cannot be taken, because you have a fork supported by the bishop on e3, for example. Like if you just go here to defend, and this wins the game. Like this is hanging, but it doesn't even matter because the rook is hanging. So knight a4 also is defended by the queen, and so there's multiple turns required to open the a file now. Now there's one more pieces in the way, and I thought this gave me just enough time to kind of like untangle these pieces and prepare for either a second wave of attack on the remaining squares available to the king, or find some material compensation. So he has rook b7 to cover this. So now I imagine he would sacrifice the rook if I went there immediately. And I go knight e6. And so knight e6, very, very clear goal. Send the queen packing. And even now, I mean, I thought about after bishop e5 here. I was quite upset that the position holds together so well. But I thought that like black is just completely lost. But I had to kind of go into this line because I didn't see anything better than knight takes g7. Especially just because like nothing, like I don't think there's a rook sacrifice, or I don't think there's bishop takes f6, because when the knight takes, although this does win the queen, so maybe after bishop takes. But I didn't want to get rid of the dark square bishop as an attacking piece because of how weak this king is in the corner. Like it can't move. So after here bishop takes, there's not much left for me to play for. I guess there's like you can sack the rook, but you also can't really do that. So I'll show you a line I was worried about for a while. Is that okay? So first of all, this is hanging. This is like a pretty urgent problem. But a line I was like consistently worried about was this, in a different position, not with the knight here. Maybe I will look at that at a different point. But it's essentially this fork, because my pieces are not anywhere in position to defend each other. So I just took here, and then went bishop e6. And bishop e6 is actually just a kind of a bad pin. I think maybe now is where to do this. No, this also doesn't work. Same thing. Same fork. So I don't think it's this either. But I wish b6 because I didn't really see a way to kind of keep the pressure going. So I thought bishop b6 is fine. It kind of allows a bit of a liquidation here. After queen e8, I'm essentially forced to take. Because if I just drop back, I'm kind of getting bulldozed. And so as long as I take, I can reduce the material count a little bit, and then come back in time to defend the queen side. Which I think I had to do. I'm not entirely sure. Bishop bishop b5, which I think is also kind of slow, but this is not hanging at all. I can just take the b pawn, protected by the newly placed bishop there. And then he goes queen a6 and begins to fish for whatever counterplay will be left at the end. I can put the knight here now that there's no fork threat. Bring the knight here is good, and also these taking here will just give me connected pass pawns again. Obviously the bishop's in the way, but I could sack the rook for the bishop and push the pawns. So I wasn't really too concerned about that. He goes rook d8 to defend the knight with one more layer. I come back to g5 now that this doesn't need to be defended, and he has to move the rook back here. And then I bring the rook all the way to d6, dislodging the queen from the defense of the knight a little bit. Queen f7 is forced. Queen c3 goes to this last little last pawn in the position. Rook e8 defends, and then rook a d1 is just piling the pressure on. So now he has to take the knight. If he doesn't take the knight, he'll get blown off the board in some spectacular attack. So he takes the knight, and then h6, h6, and then h6. Here, actually, there's a huge problem here, and that is the fact that these pawns can just go if this rook can get dislodged. And so after h6, I actually is able to trap the rook, essentially. There's nowhere for the rook to go. You can come back now. I think now is your only chance to come back, because then after this, you can at least move somewhere. You can move here, but then a7 happens. And actually, not yet. A7 actually a7 still works because you can't take the bishop because you lose the queen, you lose the rook. Yeah. Actually, yeah, this is extremely. It doesn't work for black. This is probably just loses faster. But bishop e7 also puts the rook in a cage. Because these are the only two squares I can move to, and the pawn and bishop cover both. So this rook is now entombed, and I have enough time to go queen a5, queen a8, or queen a5, a4, queen a6 to dislodge the rook. But actually, he goes over here and sacrifices his bishop in order to open like one last front of counterplay. Unfortunately, rook f2 comes in play and pins the bishop to the queen, forcing a rather unpleasant transformation where I can just take with the pawn instead, defending everything. Everything is defended here. The queen hits three pawns. These pawns defend each other. The rook defends the pawn, and the king is safe because these pawns, the rook cannot get to these pawns. Queen c1, king g2, rook f7. He's still looking for like a g4 push, something to rip open the last defenses of the king. But I have enough time to come back and defend. This also hits this pawn, which even I can even take it now. But I wanted to kind of kick the queen around a little more before taking. And so I go here, force start in a queen trade. Now I can take. And then when I take, I just can keep the rook trapped. The longer the rook's trapped, the longer these pieces are out of the game, I'm simply up a rook in the position, and so it's not winnable for black at all. He goes g4 looking for like a little more counterplay, and I just start pushing the pawns. All the pawns. He's pushing the pawns too, looking to open the position. And he has to sack the queen here, and I can just push the pawns a little more, and then he resigns from this position. I'm actually not entirely sure. Obviously, you have no more material. This is not winnable, really. There might have been some traps, but I think the critical position was allowing knight g5. I think bishop g7 is required. I think this is a position that is much harder to win for white. I think even now though, queen b3 can come, and you have to go knight b8 to defend this enough. It's very difficult to defend. But obviously I can't take yet. This doesn't really make anyone happy. Obviously, it's rook and 2 pawns. I mean, this might even still be fine, just because of like how like restricted black's pieces are. But this is certainly not a position that I would like to be playing. I probably go like rook b1 here, and like nothing can really move. So I just kind of prepare to open the position with ba on this open line. But yeah, I mean, allowing knight g5, this simply is too much pressure in the position. And although it's just 2 pawns, now 3 in this position, the activity is what really matters here, and the fact that like none of his pieces are past the midway point, and I have a knight anchored by 2 pawns all the way on the 5th rank. So yeah, a big win in round 1 against Coven. I was very pleased with this, and didn't really think I made any significant issues. Although I guess now that I've looked at this closer, I think c5 is actually uh, a miss here. Like I certainly missed how strong d5 could have been. I don't really know if there is sufficient counterplay for it. So good to note. Yeah, so let's move on to round 2. Round 2, I had the black pieces versus David Elkin. I've played David before in either a quads or like a $15 open. David is an older guy. He's got his reading glasses in a really nice little sheath that I'm kind of jealous of. I would get that too. Uh, but yeah, David is a little lower rated than I am. Kaufman is also a little lower rated than I am. I think I mean I'm not really sure. Like the ratings of older folks is very difficult to predict because they have the experience of someone that like might have been like 16 1800, but they just they don't have the same like sharpness. So I kind of took his rating with a grain of salt and prepared for. I played him before though, so I kind of know a little bit of his play style. I think we also played this kind of Queen Theater declined when we played the first time. But we played a Queen Theater declined. Very classical position here. Um, I think actually after Bishop B2, the line is this takes take because you make the bishop move twice, and then you go for like an A6 B5 kind of thing with the bishop here. Uh, this is a position I've played before as well. I think this is probably better than the variation I ended up in, but I kind of forgot the DC line and played knight b7 quite quickly. Knight b7 is all. I mean, it's fine. This pawn is a little looser now that the queen isn't covering, but it doesn't really matter. But it does matter when you have c5. And c5 just straight up loses the pawn. Or it doesn't lose the pawn, but it makes this pawn isolated, and it's kind of unfortunate that that happens because the blockade is very easy to happen. And so you'll see here that like after take, knight d4 does blockade the pawn. When you have an isolated pawn, what you want to do with it is push it forward because you can kind of use it as an attacking piece. And if you're defending against isolated pawn, you want to blockade it with your pieces and kind of set up a capturing ring for it. And so after knight d4, I was kind of miffed because there's no good way to dislodge the knight. It'll take multiple turns to get a piece in a position to dislodge it. So I was quite unhappy with myself for allowing this transformation with c5. But I mean, it's still probably just even. Bishop d7, rook e1. Rook e1, I think he said after that bishop f3 now is probably better because in the game I get rook c8 off, which is just like one more turn of activity before the position changes. But if you get bishop e3 immediately, then this like what I do in game, which is bishop e8. Like if we do this whole thing a turn faster without the rook on e1, like this is the position at the end. But if you do that with bishop f3 now, and then you come back in here and in here. Then my rook's not here, so there's no threat of like blockade or hitting the queen on c2 or any of these other squares for the queen, and so it's probably better for white. Because what happens in the game is that rook e1 gets played, so I have rook c8 on the board before this whole position happens. All this is forced. Oh, this bishop e8 is not forced. I can just go bishop e6. And I didn't want to go bishop e6. But I didn't want the hanging, like this kind of like hanging pawn structure. After moving the rook to the c file, because it's gonna just kind of like waste tempo, getting the rook back into action. And I thought that like something like an e4 break would be like immediate, and I can push. But if I push too far, it's you can't defend the pawn really. And then you have weaknesses in the back. If you do push, you can push a couple times. But now that it's here, it's not really defendable anymore. This white can go back. This is still defended, and now this is going to be a bit of a fool after b4. But you can still look for play with this kind of position. Like I think like if I'm playing here with the black pieces, I think that I can still look for some life. It's just difficult because after like queen d4, this is playable, and you can't take because of the pin, and so I'd have to like move somewhere. I mean, this does also just like buy time. I don't know. This might have been playable. I did not want the hanging pawn structure. Like C and D versus E and D. I've had very poor performances with this. In the take variation, there might actually be a tactic. If D takes, queen takes here. This back rank mate. So actually this that actually might be quite strong then. This bishop c6 knight takes here. No, actually, okay. Maybe it's not strong. Maybe e4 doesn't work, because everything is kind of, or maybe you can take the pawn back. But then and then on top of pawn. So this would not be like, I don't think e4 would be played. I think probably more likely it would be something more solid. Even like b4 is good. B4, and then even b5 is probably good too. Just smashing open these weak pawns. And I think white can play for a lot of activity here. So yeah, hanging pawn structure I did not want, but bishop b8 here, this just loses the pawn because that's not defendable. However, I knew that at the end of this variation I would have bishop c6. And bishop c6 would hit the queen. It would hit the bishop behind the queen. It would defend the knight, so you can't take with the queen, and trade. And so bishop c6, I knew there was something to play for here. I'm down a pawn, but the bishop is undeveloped. The rook is stuck in the corner. The queen is kind of the only piece active, and the f2 square is weak, and the g2 square can be hit. So I knew that all of that was a possibility. So I was not unhappy playing this position exactly. I go queen b3, he goes queen b3, and I just go queen g5. In queen g5, I figured you either move the queen out of the way. Okay, so if you don't move the queen out of the way, if you just like go like h3 or something, just pass. If you don't move the queen out of the way, then this is very bad. It's not even like losing after like queen d1, rook f d8 here. Like it's defended, it's safe, but it just like sucks because you're not developing and you can't really get any activity. Um, and so like I control kind of everything for just the price of the pawn. Um, but it's not unplayable. But he takes, and so after taking, I knew this was bad. I knew this was bad because after this you can't defend the king. Um, f3 doesn't work because this like there's actually the funny thing is it completely doesn't work. It's mate. Because the two ways to defend it by bringing like a piece back to the second rank doesn't work because of the c rook that wouldn't have moved in the rookie one non-rookie one variation. So the c rook actually comes to the rescue here. Uh, and he goes g3 instead. But yeah, after it doesn't work at all. And then the other piece that could move is the rook, which also just can't move. um, so after it was unplayable, and then there's no other way to defend the pawn. So g3 must be played. After the game, actually, we analyzed and realized that I might have just missed c2, which I think just wins the game on the spot because his pieces cannot move. This bishop is trapped. Like the bishop can't go to d2. You're not putting the rook there. That just walks into like a nightmare of a position. I mean, it's probably the only move even. Because what I'm threatening to do is just to go like queen f5, queen f2 mate, or even queen f5 and queen f3 and then queen g2. Like there's too many mate threats here. But if I mean, I actually wonder like if you just go here, yeah, like you could defend this threat, but you can't defend the other one. And this is probably just mate. This is what happens in game, and I completely missed this actually. Is that he has queen d1, and so if I go queen or rook c2, the queen is cut off from the d1 square completely, and there's actually no way to get back to it because this square is also defended. And so this was the winning idea. This wins the game on the spot. Um, and I'm kind of upset now that like post analysis that I didn't see this. I had plenty of time. I could have spent um much more of my time finding the actual win, especially because I'm down material. Like if I'm up a lot of material and like anything is okay, but like, I'm looking for the best variation. It doesn't really matter too much. That I'm not playing like perfect, but the fact that I'm down material and I'm just like not spending enough time is quite quite bad on my end because this just wins the game immediately. Like there's no play. You have to win now and then go like here, and this sucks. Like you lose. um, But yeah, this line just wins. It's completely unstoppable. Right? Um, so yeah, I'm miffed I didn't see that. So I do instead of bishop f3, and then I thought, okay, well this, the light squares are still insanely weak, and he has no light square bishop to stop me. So I kind of figured in my head that like, um, yeah, the thing with I'll explain. The thing with queen d1 is that you have to either trade, which like hell no, um, or block. Because if you go here, you just have f3 now. Now it's defended. And you can go like here, but then this, and then you can actually this is fine. This is also fine. I'm okay now. Now I'm actually quite upset. This also just wins. I need to be calculating much deeper than I am right now. This also just wins. Um, this is too many threats. Like if rook fd8, then this wins. And if the immediate rook c2, you can take, but it's mate. And you can block, but then I can just actually no, you just block. Never mind. Rook c2 does not work, but this works. Basically the queen is running out of squares. Like you can't defend this. and anything else because these rooks are so strong. Rook e2 does not work because or rook e2 does not work because of rook e2, and then when you take, the queen takes, and the difference is that everything is very well defended now. You can go here, but the queen is safe. You actually would have to go here. I'm not sure why I put that in there. But yeah, the queen is safe. And you can't really cash out because you're just down a piece. But in the so no rook c2 line. In the rook f8 line first, then rook c2. You've cut off the queen accurately, and so you can do this. And even this doesn't work because of use this mate here. You can't even take this rook. You have to go like, or I think it's also just a force mate. Yeah. So there's multiple chances here that I missed actually. Queen h3 is fine, and I should have seen Queen h3 because it's quite obvious in hindsight. But in the game goes bishop f3, and the queen gets to the defending square. And so now that honestly, I don't realize how I had like four mates until after the game. So there's no psychological impact on me during the game that I'm like missing things or throwing things away. And so I just kind of very cool, calm, and collected, prepare a rook lift to get here and win the game on this square instead of this square. Because I have I have that much time. The bishop can't move, the rook can't move, the queen can go here. The queen can go here and then like have to go back. So I thought this was good. He goes b3 now. I thought e4 first might have been interesting. I think we looked at this after the match. But e4 this fork doesn't really work. I just take it as well. But I thought that like if you give the pawn back, you can get a lot of activity and kind of like come back into the game. It's not easy, but like you go here, and then like this is probably a few moves for white here. But this is like I thought you could just give the pawn back and be fine. Because e6 e4 right now prevents me from going to h6. Although my idea in game was that if this did happen, I would just have g5. So actually, like taking wasn't even on my radar. I was going to go g5, which also blocks the bishop from attacking that way. Because now like that you can get like rook h3 off, but this is very strong, and you might have to sack the rook here. Now this pawn is just loose. And like you do all this, and the king is still under attack. So I thought this is a very very good position for me. But he goes b3 first, and so when I can get rook h6 for free, and then once e4 goes, I don't even have to play g5 anymore because I can go rook h3 and kind of like reshuffle my pieces around to go for the pawn rook first instead of queen first. And so I'm able to get rook h3 off. Then he has rook e3, and so actually here, it's quite concerning because you can just like take and take and just lose a piece if you're not paying attention. If you go all in like this, this is loses a piece. There's no mate here. The queen covers all the squares. There is a mate here actually. Sorry, there's a mate. There is a mate here. There's a okay. Well, apparently I missed more mates in this game than I've ever played over the board. Um, But I guess that's the nature of a dynamic attacking game. But I just saw rook h2 here, and then it forces the queen off the board. And after you centralize the queen, which forks the lone pawn and the rook in the corner, this in I calculated this like all the way back from here after rook e3. I thought that you win the pawn, and then the rook is completely stuck because there's no way to move the king away without defending the rook, and it takes many turns to get a piece to defend the rook in time. Obviously, I can't immediately like just harvest it. Like this now doesn't really work. I guess it kind of does. These are g5. And there might be like a g4 line. And like the king just run or hides in the corner. But I mean now, but like I don't know, the activity just feels too strong for black to or for white to defend safely. Yeah, maybe there was actually a g5 here, or an earlier rook c3. But I went rook c6 instead, and I thought, okay, well I'll go for it this way then, because at least this way g4 g5 is immediate. And it is g5 here hits the bishop first, and then hits the rook. You don't even have to take. If you take actually, I thought I wanted to calculate this all the way, since this pin is here. But after this, the rooks are safe, and there's no mate. For the first time this game, there's no mate. And it's actually, like obviously you're up a rook, rook for queen for rook, but it's not as easy as just pushing all the way to g4, which then just wins the rook for free. And he actually repins here. I thought he would just kind of like hide in the corner. But I guess this is also not going to work with the. I'll let you take. I don't know. But I go h4 and he just resigns. Because this is coming. And I mean, even if you and you can't push anymore. When you push now this falls. And this falls, and you you lose. That's mate, pawn mate. So yeah, so after h4 he just resigns. So yeah, another win. Against David. Was concerning from the start, but I just lost the pawn. But I mean, I don't know if that was real compensation or if he just didn't play perfectly accurately, but it felt like it was almost all just like a domino effect. Like he's, like you get the bishop on c6, and then like everything kind of just follows pretty naturally. Like I didn't spend much time here. Just everything made sense. You go here and you go for the weakness, and you go here and you go here. And but I mean, I guess if I did spend more time, I would have won quite much quicker than I did. Because apparently I missed mate many times. Okay, and now for the last game against Zainul Abidin. Actually, I'm scheduled to play him on Tuesday. In the Tuesday night events. And he was the highest rated player in the quad. He's about 200 points higher rated than I am. And we were doing some like rapid and blitz in the back room beforehand, and he was very sharp. And so I was actually kind of worried going into the game that I would kind of get a little blown out of the water. And so what we end up with is actually a Slav, which is the absolute opposite of sharp and getting blown out of the water. I think the draw rate here is like almost 70%. But it's like a very very boring position. I think knight h4 might not have been correct. I think if instead of knight h4 I just went bishop e2 like a normal person, this is probably a much better position. I didn't like my knight h4 for almost every move after I put it there. And so here I actually just straight up blunder. I played this kind of quickly and just didn't see queen b6. I thought like I guess in my head, like this pawn is just defended. Because I play a lot of like Catalan positions where like this knight is not here because the c pawn is either going forward, or there's an e pawn here, or the knight here because this knight once again this knight moved and this knight is not really doing anything here. And so yeah, so here I blundered a pawn. You can't really defend everything. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll defend nothing with rook c1, at least getting some activity off of the lost pawn. After like you can't really take here. You can take here. I'm pretty sure this is quite good. For black. Like, I think you would like take here and then maybe try to find a like a way to like trap the queen, but there isn't really a way to trap the queen. And this doesn't really you can't get out with the knight because the check always happens. But I mean, if you take immediately, I do think that I would probably take here and then uh look for some play along the lines of like this. Then this loses the second pawn. It's certainly not pleasant. And so so he gives a6. He tells me you don't have to go for the free stuff yet. It's not even like you haven't defended it. So knight takes here, and so I'm just down the pawn again. This is game 2 where I'm just down the pawn out of the opening. I go queen b3 here. My idea is just that like okay, well if you go, like knight a5, I will just come back, and when we trade, your knight's on the corner. I get like one tempo. And I just thought, okay, well, this is at least like I might be able to get to the C file faster. He can still just go here like now, and I have almost nothing. I can't even like it's not even like a tactic here, so you just take this check songs at the end, and this doesn't work because this also hangs. So since everything is hanging, that this whole line doesn't really work. So like yeah, I think like after this, I probably go for like an a3 b4 kind of thing. Look for some activity. Open the bishop with like e4. Um, but I didn't see that you can just go queen b4, and now I kind of have to take because if I go back, I lose the second pawn. If I go here first, I can go here and here, but then the knight comes in, um, and that's bad. Like if like this. I didn't like this at all. And it's not the worst. Um, but black is very active and up a pawn, and so there's not really much in it for me. I guess you can maybe like look for like this would hang a piece, um, and this feels like it would hang a piece, and it does. So you have to go like here, which is kind of ugly. I think now even like this works. Yeah, maybe bishop c5 is not playable. Maybe like just here, because that way you can go here when you leave. Um, But yeah, I took the queen here and then took this first because I wanted this square to be less defended for an e4 push eventually. Um, Also, the double pawns maybe were a weakness enough to turn this more drawish. I think I undoubled them here, so I'm not really sure. But I undoubled it in the way that makes the opposite color bishops. So I thought I was trying to just like increase my drawing chances since I was down the pawn. Um, I thought like maybe with the opposite color bishops, there's drawing chances. I go e3 here to prevent a d4 push, um, but then he kind of invites like a knight a4 maneuver, because by getting off of this kind of complex, I'm threatening to also enter the complex, with something like like a b4 knight c5, get the knight active. It's really all I can do in this position. But he kind of locks it down with rook c8, and so now this doesn't really work. But like you can go here, um, and it's just very sad, uh, for white because after here it's rock solid. Like you go here, and then you just push. Not yet, because you lose the pawn. Um, but you can like push this pawn. And, like white's light bishop can't do anything. Um, So I took the rook instead, and then after takes, broke open with e4. D4 is very good. You can't take because of this little So I had to go f4 to get the knight out, so that doesn't work. But now you can't take because, well, you can. This is like not unsafe, but this position sucks because I just like you just come back and like the king is cut off, the bishop's sitting in the back, the knight this pawn is hanging, um, and like and your pawns are forward on this side, so you can't like hide behind them with your king to get out, and that position is very bad. So I continued to kick the knight out, um, and actually now I kind of thought he would go here. Um, I was surprised he didn't go here. I thought that after this, and then it's like takes here, takes here, check. I can make it here though. Um, but like I'm kind of boxed in. My knight is a little low on moves. Although this is safe. I don't know. I mean, this might have been quite drawish actually, as well. So maybe that's why I didn't want to go into it. This 93 line, or maybe even just take immediately. Save some time. These are actually identical positions. So, uh, but yeah, so he is here, makes him imbalance. And now I thought of two things. I thought I can just take, which is what I did in game. I took and he took. I can just take, or I could go knight b6, and that way, at least when I take, the rook is off the c file, and I can get here. And so this is like my other idea, and I'm on the c file, but I just thought that he can just go here and then here, and he just has a passed pawn here that I can get to, but it's quite easy for. I thought Black could turn this into a win. This 4-on-3 with the janky pawn structure. Um, but I took it instead because I thought the double knight pawns were even better for me, like even more drawish. Because even if like everything disappears and it's just two a pawns, I can still just sit there in the corner or like over here if everything goes away. Um, so rook d2 here I thought was required to prevent an infiltration. And I can get the king pretty active here. He misses bishop f1, and so now like I'm getting my last piece in the game. Um, rook c6, king f3. My king is like very alive here. Rook b6, and I make maybe like the most catastrophic blunder ever made. Uh, I immediately saw that like okay, bishop c4 is very active. I can get to like g8. Go for the weaknesses. Um, and it covers b3. B3 is kind of like his last shot at like getting active with this. He has even mentioned like at some point like being able to sacrifice to like open up and try to push the a pawn. So I thought I could just sit in front of it and you can't stop it. um, but yeah, instead of going bishop c4, which just is very very good. And it makes it difficult for Black to kind of get into the position because this is like a force field. If Black wants to get in, they have to go like this, and now I can go rook h2, and this might be playable for a win even. I just take. Sorry, I would just like take here and then drop this pawn completely, because I just have this, and your king's in a box. I just like take. I guess my fear here was that you can go king takes, but after this actually, this is quite difficult for. Like I think I can just walk up and push the pawn. My rook is kind of boxed in, so I don't know if I could defend this in time. Um, but there's certainly a lot better play in, or maybe even I take here first, then I take this pawn with check, and when you come to defend, you go here, which means that your rook is cut off back here, and then I take. and then when you take this, I take this too. This is almost certainly a win. Like we're in table-based mode now, and it's um that this just feels like it's completely winning. I'm up a pawn now, and this pawn is just going, defended by the bishop in the corner, and this pawn can be stopped. My bishop covers this. These colors are really nice. The bishop is hanging as well. This is probably playable for a win. But I blundered completely and went rook h2 first, and this is the game. Because you get them frustrated, and my bishop is king is so far away from this, and it's the right color, and there's two passers. This is bad. And so he make a few more moves, and I just resign. Like there's nothing I can do. So really upset actually that bishop c4 just kind of, well, I mean, it was in my brain too. Bishop c4, you just kind of play it, and it's quite difficult for, like, you might have to go like here, and even like here to defend. And then like I might be able to like rip open the king side like with this. And look to like make a pass this way, a sacrifice another pawn. Because of how strong this king in the corner kind of strategy is. Like everything is well defended. But yeah, unfortunately, I mean, I just went rook h2 one move early, and it just loses the game. There's not even like I thought about like this, but this happened, and I can take with check and everything, and like it looks like I'm surviving a bit, but I just lose. I'm down a piece in a check, and like you lose everything. Okay, like you just lose. So yeah, very very upset with myself for missing bishop c4, or just not playing bishop c4. I didn't miss it. I had it in my brain. And I just like saw it, and I was like, yeah, that's good. And then 5 seconds later, I was like, oh, well, rook h2 now works really well. And I have like over 20 minutes on the clock too at this time, and so I certainly have the time to figure out if I can draw this. And I just rush it, and I've done this before. I mean, I've lost multiple games to just kind of walking through the position a little fast. And so I think if I do ever get a coach, or if like uh when I play more classical, I think I need to slow down. Because this is just quite embarrassing to not be able to hold this. I haven't looked at the engine line yet at all. This might actually still just be a win for black, but I mean, like, it feels extremely drawish, or even winning for white after the rook h2 maneuver. Um, so yeah, quite upset with this loss. He actually goes 3-0. He beat David and Kevin as well. So crushing win for him in the squads. He's probably gonna go up a significant amount of rating, which is kind of like like fattening the duck for when I play him on Tuesday. But I think I've learned a good amount from how he plays. I think he is certainly beatable. I just blundered in the opening, and I blundered in the end game, and that's enough to lose. Chess is you lose if you make the second to last mistake, and I made both of them. So yeah, in the future, this I cannot be doing this if I need to improve, if I want to improve, or else I'll just be stuck if I let this happen over and over again. But I think this is a really good learning experience to lose like this, to lose like because of a single move that I thought of. I think it'll help me slow down a lot. It's not the first time I've lost this kind of thing. I've played a game where like I just kind of play fast. I think it's everything's equal, everything's the same, and I just miss things that my opponent says that he took like a couple minutes to look at, and I'm like, oh, well, I should have done that. And I actually, it's funny because like earlier this week I listened. The reason I'm doing these kind of videos now is that I found Robert Eckstedt's YouTube chess YouTube channel from his just I was curious, and I watched our game that we played in the January $15 Open where I lost my wallet, and he actually mentioned that in the video, which is kind of funny. Because I told, because we were at lunch together, and I told him I lost it after the game. And I was watching his video, and in that game, actually, I'm losing because I'm too slow. Like I'm completely winning. I'm outplaying him. He's like 300 points higher rated than me, and I'm just beating him down on the board, finding brilliant like bishop sacrifice and everything. But I have like 2 minutes on the clock, and he's like 20. Uh, so I don't know what like in this 5 month period where I just kind of forgot how to play slow, or maybe actually over adjusted to what Robert recommended that I pick up speed on a little of the on some of the more like less nuanced moves. But I guess it's hard for me to kind of determine like what moves are and aren't important. It's very easy to look at them in hindsight. Uh, but yeah, I think I need to slow down again. I think I ended all three of these games with more time than my opponent. But just like I mean that's fine. If like playing quicker than your opponent is fine. But playing too quick that you just miss things that um are quite obvious is not fine. And I think yeah, in the future this is not something that I can be continuing to do. Like Vicious before just hold this is like the glue, and I just threw it away. Um, but yeah, I am glad with the way this tournament went. I thought my games against Coven and against David were very very smooth. The only things that I like, missed in the games against them were like the C5 move against Coven and the bishop sack to like, mate earlier in against David. But those are both like missing things where like, you're already winning, or you're already like your position's already better, and it's just like continue to make it better. So I wasn't like extremely upset with missing those. But missing like a quite holdable draw or even win because I went too fast is quite upsetting. So yeah. But these two games were very good. I thought I played like well above my level. In these two games. Just like I thought like even, especially the game against Coven, this felt positionally just like like Karpovian. Like there's nothing that Black can do, and it's move 11. um, like everything is just sealed away. So I thought this was like a very good game. And against David, this attack that I was able to brew up out of just losing a pawn, I thought also was very. I mean, obviously, I took advantage of his uh, rookie one move that's like a move too slow. He had a lot of activity, but I took the attack and turned it into a win. As I kind of anticipated. Um, After getting like once I got the attack going, I think even like by I think here. I think by move 18, I knew I was winning because this is so weak. Like G3 is just so weakening of the white squares that I knew I was just winning. It's down upon. But this last game, uh, I kind of just losing this pawn did not have the same compensation as losing the pawn in the Elkin game. Uh, so in the future, I will solidify my openings a good amount, and look to improve my game in a lot of angles. I think my um, tactics have been pretty good. Uh, Maybe not actually if I'm missing all those mates against David, but maybe I should work on more puzzles. I don't know. I think just like my plan building needs some work. But I think this game just felt very aimless against Dino Labadine. Um, like I felt like I was just playing move by move against him. And I didn't really have a plan. And I don't know if that's just like a symptom of being down material. Is that like you don't have the liberty of building a plan that's gonna work. Um, so I'm not entirely sure, but I don't know. I think plan making is something I've always struggled with. Was like it's not something I've you know it's not something you learn in like online rapid and blitz. Like you don't have the time to formulate a plan and execute it, and like calculate all of the lines where like what makes it work and everything. And so the adjustment to classical, and I've been playing classical for like 7 months now, so it's still adjustment because this is less than 10% of the time I've been playing chess. Like and I mean, although it's like maybe like 30% of the time I've been playing like seriously. Um, that yeah, plan building has certainly been quite difficult for me. And so I think like uh maybe some of the literature, like how to retest your chess, could be useful for me. Um, but I will certainly be reassessing the way I'm handling these kind of positions before Tuesday, when my game against Zayn um, Tuesday night, which I believe I will also have the white pieces with if the standings or the pairings stay the same. Um, so I'm hoping that will go differently than this game. Um, so yeah, until Tuesday, I will continue to reevaluate based off of the analysis of these three games. So see ya.